Welcome to Building Your Toolkit, EWAAB's newest collection of professional development resources. Building Your Toolkit is a webinar series where we will take a closer look at professional development topics we believe are necessary for successful career growth. Today's episode is brought to you by me, Sam Collins, CEO of EWAAB. Today, we will focus on networking. I recommend bringing a pen and paper to follow along. This webinar will cover the importance of networking, mapping and reviewing your existing network, building new connections, and maintaining your growing network. The big question, why should I network? Often when people hear the word networking, there is an immediate aversion. Thoughts come forward from, I don't know how to talk to people, to networking is just a fancy word for using people, to, oh, I'm just a student. I don't need to network until after I get a job. While all of these feelings are understandable, and I promise I've been there myself, networking is integral to your personal and professional development. The purpose of networking is to form relationships with those who can help you navigate your field, your career, and your general professional development. The earlier you start forming these relationships, the better. You don't need to know exactly what you want to be when you grow up or exactly how somebody can help you in the future. Just form meaningful connections and their usefulness will present itself down the road. Now that we know why networking is important, even if you're an undergraduate, let's start thinking about your existing network. Even if you've never actively tried to build a network, I promise you have one. Let's start by writing out who your connections are. I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about in a moment. First, who do you know? Start close and move outwards. Who are your friends and family that could give you general professional advice, field-specific insight, or connect you with somebody new? Once you have your close friends and family down, you can include potentially weaker connections like your acquaintances, professors, and that supervisor you had lifeguarding one summer. Now, who do they know? As you move outward, think of the people your inner network might know. Do they have friends in your field? Could they introduce you to a supervisor or colleague? If you're not sure, that's no problem. Put a question mark next to their name. Perhaps you can ask them who they know later. What do you want to know? Once you have their names and basic information, what are you interested in learning from them? Is there something you want to learn about that the people in your map can't answer? Perhaps your friend could tell you about their volunteer experience because they're working for an interesting cause, or your professor could recommend some summer internships or research opportunities. Now let's take a quick look at what I'm talking about. This is just an example of what your map could look like. You could similarly visualize your network as concentric circles with friends and family in the innermost circle, then acquaintances, then folks you met one time at a conference. Here, I've given you an example of how you can visualize potential connections. Perhaps your dad works as an accountant for a small corporation. Your dad could potentially give you professional advice from his experience, or he could connect you with somebody like the CIO of this corporation because you're interested in becoming a software engineer and want to learn about other paths through the tech field. Or perhaps you have a favorite professor in your field. They could give you advice on how to navigate the field, or they could maybe introduce you to a recruiter who's looking for an entry-level software engineer. How you visualize your network is up to you. Just take the time to actually write it out. This will help you remember just how many connections you have and help you see where you can grow. Take some time now to pause this webinar, rewind to the previous slide, and create a map of your own. Having an idea of what your network is will make it easier to view the rest of the webinar in the context of your own network. Now that you've taken some time to think about who is in your network, let's review for potential opportunities and areas for growth. First, where are your strongest connections? While your strongest connections may not always be your most useful, they can be more likely to lead to other potential connections. Take one of the friends listed in the example. They themselves may not have had any special knowledge or experience that could help you grow, but they could connect you to people who could. Can you reach out to some of the folks from your inner network to introduce you to new people? Then take a look at your most relevant connections. Even if they aren't the strongest, which connections or potential connections are the most relevant to your goals and interests? How can you strengthen those connections? Take your favorite professor as an example. They are in your field and can provide some good advice or connect you to new people that could help. How do you make sure that connection is strong enough to ask them for a favor or last after graduation? Perhaps you can attend their office hours or ask them to join you for lunch in the dining hall. Lastly, where can new connections be made? It's okay if your current network doesn't have all the connections you need for your professional interests. This is an opportunity to identify areas for network growth. Next, we turn to building new connections. The first step in building new connections is identifying where you need more connections and determining who you should connect with. Step 1, done. You've already taken some time to map your network and review it for gaps, or at least hopefully you did. An additional step you can take is review your map next to any goals that you have set, or even review potential position descriptions to find areas where you need help. Reviewing your network in the context of your goals and interests will make it more meaningful. The next two steps are reaching out and following up. We'll go over these in more detail in the following slides. There are a variety of ways you can reach out. This can be a cold email, a message on LinkedIn, or just walking over to somebody at an event, whether it's a networking event or just a party. For additional resources on cold emailing and using LinkedIn, definitely check out our professional development toolkit resources online. Often, the most nerve-wracking part about reaching out is how to introduce yourself. An effective introduction includes two things: key information and your interests. Introduce yourself with your first and last name. This is particularly helpful when you're meeting somebody for the first time in person. This will help them to remember you, especially if you look to connect with them via LinkedIn later on. Then follow up with professional information. If you're a student, including your field of study and class year. If you're professional, include your position and organization name, as well as the field it's in if it's not a well-known organization. Including key information seems obvious, but what about interests? Why share what you're interested in with somebody you've only just met? Not only does this help the other person to remember you, it will also help you when you ask them for an introduction or a recommendation later on. Is there something in your field you're particularly passionate about? Are you working on something exciting you'd like to share? What you share may change depending on the person you're talking to or the event you're attending, but be sure to include it. If you're attending a fundraiser for a cause you care about, share about your passion for advocacy. If you're at a Women Engineers networking event, share your specific research interests. Here's a quick example of something you can use. This kind of format is especially useful if you're introducing yourself in front of a group. Hi, my name is Sam Collins, and I'm the CEO of Encouraging Women Across All Borders, or EWAAB. I'm particularly passionate about gender equity and professional development, so EWAAB is really the perfect place for me. Here's a key tip when making a new connection. Be careful of your mindset. This is serious. Here's a key tip when making a new connection. Be careful of your mindset. This can have a serious impact on your ability to make real connections. Networking shouldn't be a chore you need to get through. It should be an enjoyable opportunity to make meaningful connections with new people. A poor mindset means creating poor connections. Ask questions, especially about a potential connection's interests and passions. The more you engage with them, the more they will remember you. Be sure to also make a mental note of what they tell you to mention when you follow up. Networking isn't just sharing business cards. You're doing this to meet and engage with real people. Lastly, share your goals. I can't emphasize this enough. If you don't share what your goals and interests are with people, you'll never have a helping hand. You never know if somebody could provide you with insights, make referrals, or help you to create even more new connections. Even if your new connection doesn't have a way to help you right now, they may have an opportunity to in the future, and if they don't know what your goals are, they won't think of you. It's not enough just to have one conversation, collect their information, and call them a connection. You need to be able to develop and maintain all of your connections, especially ones you've identified as particularly useful. First, follow up. After the initial connection, reach out again. Remind them who you are by giving them your basic information and where you met them. Then solidify your connection by mentioning something the two of you talked about. Perhaps it's a shared research interest or an article you found that you think they would enjoy. And end with asking to plan for the future. For example, hi Caitlin, my name is Sam Collins and we met the other day at the nonprofit executive meeting. I came across this book about the confidence gap that I thought you would enjoy. I'd love to chat with you further about confidence if you have some time to connect. I have some availability next week if that works for you. After you've followed up and perhaps had another conversation, don't fall off the face of the earth. Check in regularly. Regularly can mean different things depending on the person, but a general rule of thumb is every 1 to 3 months. Now, this doesn't mean you need to call them once a month. Maintaining a connection can simply mean commenting on a LinkedIn post, sending them an interesting article, or sharing a life update. Just keep your name and profile on their mind so if they come across opportunities they think will be good for you, they will share it. Lastly, the ask, the reason for networking and the most uncomfortable aspect. Once you've created and developed a connection, be sure to ask them for advice, introductions, or referrals when you need them. Be mindful, though. Keep these limited and meaningful so you can maintain a good relationship. An example of this could be, "Hi, Caitlin. I saw that your organization is hiring and I'd like to apply. Can we schedule a chat so I can hear more about your experience with this organization?" Here's a key tip about developing connections. Grow. Don't be satisfied with your current network. There are always new opportunities to be explored or new perspectives to hear. Be active. Growing your network is an active and ongoing process. You never know when you'll run into the perfect person to add to your network. While networking doesn't always need to be your top priority, recognizing that it isn't a one-and-done activity will help you to continue to grow and maintain your network. Be a super connector. A super connector is somebody who frequently connects folks in their network to each other. They listen and remember what their network shares with them and uses that to find other connections. Super connectors are well remembered by their network and are more likely to be super connected themselves. Now what? You have a lot of information at your fingertips. How do you get going? Start small and work your way up. Review your existing network and start identifying areas for growth. Then, start by connecting either in person or via LinkedIn with people you already know. Then you can begin reaching out to build some new connections. Start cold emailing new folks you're interested in connecting with. The more you do it, the easier it will feel. Remember, the worst they can say is no. You can also find networking events at your university or online. Start attending whenever you have the availability. It's never too soon to start networking. Then, the piece that I personally find the most difficult, keeping the momentum. While you don't need to be cold emailing somebody new each day, don't stop with just a few. As you grow as a person and a professional, your needs and interests will evolve. If you stop growing and developing your network, you'll find yourself stuck and needing to start over from the beginning. Networking can absolutely seem intimidating, but you can definitely do it. I can even be your starting point. If you made it this far in the video, send me a note on LinkedIn and I'll connect with you. You can always develop professionally. Be sure to check out EWAAB's website for additional resources as well as opportunities to get involved in our programs. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at scollins@ewaab.org.